Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
No, no, it's recording.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
No, I don't know how to zoom in.
It's my privilege
Try.
to spend a few minutes with such bright young people. Even though you're shy, I can see the inquisitiveness and the intelligence on your foreheads. So inshallah we'll have a good session. I was trying to find out what kind of questions you may have in your mind so that I could speak at the appropriate level. You're still shy, but we'll talk a little later. I'll make some statements instead of talking for a whole hour, because that's probably not appropriate for this group. I'll break it up into a few sessions, maybe 4 sessions. In the first one, I'll talk about the Qur'an. It's very important, because the Qur'an is the basis of our faith. The Qur'an is the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Qur'an gives us guidance as to how to interact with nature and with history and with ourselves. The Quran says, and I'll quote an ayah from the Quran, and I'll translate for you. سَنُرِيهِمْ آيَاتِنَا فِي الْآفَاقِ وَفِي أَنفُسِنَا حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَهُمُ الْحَقُّ. Soon shall we show them our signs, S-I-G-N-S, signs. Please do take notes, those of you who are here, so that you remember a few words. They're important. You're not going to get this information elsewhere. It's important for you to learn something. Please, do take notes. The pages that you have in front of you, a few words. Signs, S-I-G-N-S. It's very important. Allah says to us that He will show us signs, His signs, on the horizon out there and within our own selves, inside of us, until we have certainty of faith. So the Quran guides us towards faith through nature, through history, and through our souls. On the horizon means what is out there. What is out there is nature. You have the stars and the galaxies and the moon and the sun. You have the flowers and the birds and the bees and the trees. And you also have history out there, something that other people have done before us. So when you look at nature, when you look at a flower, for instance, going back home, look at the flower the next time, ask yourself, what is the sign in this flower? What is this flower trying to tell me? Are you with me? Ask it, what is this tree trying to tell me? What is this star trying to tell me? What is the atom trying to tell me? What is my friend trying to tell me? And then when you read history, it is not who did what to whom, who killed anybody, he invaded somebody's territory. That is not history. History is to understand what makes a group of men and women work together to create a civilization, and what brings it apart, what makes it fall apart. You see what happened to ancient civilizations, right? You have read about the civilization of the pharaohs. You read about the Roman civilization, the Greek civilization, the Arabic Empire, the Ottoman Empire, the Safavid Empire, the Mongol Empire. You have read about them, or you will read about them. Why did they fall apart? That is history. So we have to look at history as a sign. Please do remember that word. Sign, S-I-G-N. When you go back home, you should be able to talk to your parents about signs. There are signs in everything around us. Every molecule of air that we breathe has a sign. The moon is a sign. Once the Prophet ﷺ went through a total solar eclipse in his life. Soon we're going to have a total solar eclipse. You all know that, right? In about 2 weeks. You must have eye contact. That way you will be able to at least get something out of this. Very important. Pay attention, please. Because I want you to go back home a little bit richer than you came. A little bit more. The Prophet ﷺ, he said that is a sign from Allah. The full solar eclipse. And he went home and he prayed. So think about it. There is wisdom in what he did. He went home and he prayed because it is not good to look at the sun. People wanted to look at the sun. You lose your eyes if you did that. Then he said it is a sign, because a sign is something that points us in the direction of the truth. And he wanted us to, if you would please, not do that. It's a distraction. The idea of a sign is very important in the Qur'an, because every ayah is a sign. Ayat is a sign. The Qur'an is built up of signs. That's number one. Secondly, Allah says He will show us His signs through nature, which means we must be like scientists. We must ask. Allah says in the Qur'an, ask from Him who knows. You ask Allah and He will show you the sign. You don't ask, you don't get it. This is what happened to Muslims. We stop asking. Why does the rain come down in a certain area and it does not come down in another area? You know, scientists have tried to bring down rain in specific areas. They don't know how to do it. There are millions of tons of water out there. We don't know how to bring it down. There are signs in there. There are signs in the new growth that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings down from the earth. There are signs in every grain of rice that you eat. When we say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, then the energy, the positive energy of Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim gets transmitted to the grain of rice, so that when it goes inside, it interacts with the positive energy inside, and it gives us spiritual sustenance in addition to physical sustenance. Never forget to say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. No matter what you do. That's the second thing I'm teaching you. Always start something with the name of Allah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Within yourself. Don't have to say it loud. Always do that. And what are the signs within ourselves, within our own souls? How many people do you think in the world have known the soul? Anyone? No. You know yourself only when you overcome the curtains of the soul. Soul meaning what is inside, the nafs. We do not know. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, he or she who knows himself knows God. If you know yourself, the Prophet says, you know God. So, to know oneself is to ask oneself, who am I? And the answer to that is in La ilaha illallah. There was a great man in Pakistan, his name was Allama Iqbal. He studied in Germany. He looked at all of European philosophy, asked himself, what is the secret behind the self? And he finally said, the secret is La ilaha illallah. Meaning there is no reality but the reality. He is the reality, nothing else is the reality. So a sign points to the truth. It's like the sign on the highway, freeway. A sign says Los Angeles. It goes in the direction of Los Angeles. Except that the signs in the Quran point towards the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You will never reach the throne, but it is towards Him. So the Quran guides us in the direction of studying nature. It guides us in the direction of studying history. It guides us in the direction of knowing ourselves, so that through these signs, we get to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's number one. Number two, why was it that the Muslims at one time were ahead in science and technology? And now they're not ahead in science. For instance, today, when you look at the top tier institutions in the world, universities in the world, there is not a single Islamic institution in the top 100. Nowhere. You see American institutions, English institutions, German institutions, now increasingly Chinese institutions. Not a single Islamic institution. Why? I'll give you some basic answers, and I hope you'll ask me questions. Simply stated, they, our forefathers, 1,000 years ago, were looking for the truth. Allahu Haq, Allah is the truth. They were searching for the truth. Today, we don't search for the truth. We don't ask. That's why I ask you. Unless you ask, yes, al-bihi khabira, Allah says. Ask of Him who knows. If you don't ask, how are you going to get an answer? Even in your classroom, learn to raise your hand and ask. There is no such thing as a bad question. In life, when you grow up, learn to speak up. That's being a Muslim, about good things. If you don't speak up, how is anybody going to know what it is that you're looking for? If you don't speak for yourself, other people will speak for you. That's what happened to Muslims. Other people started to ask. They got the answers. Muslims stopped asking. They said, this is it, finish, taqleed, follow it, and I'm not going to advance anymore. So when you don't ask, you don't get. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to ask. It's not my opinion. Yes, al-bihi khabira. I'm quoting to you from the Quran. That's the second thing. They, our forefathers, wanted to know the truth. So Allah showed them the direction of the truth. We don't ask, so we don't get. Third, why was it again that the Muslims fell behind? I'll give you yet another reason. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent us, through our prophets, a series of guidance, all the way from Adam alayhi salam till our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And He perfected our deen. Deen does not mean religion. It's more than religion. Deen is more. Deen al-haq. It's a combination of faith, moral certitude, belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, following His commandments, through our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the deen was perfected. And this deen tells us that we must be moderate, no matter what you do in life. Because the Qur'an says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُعْتَدِينَ. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not like the extremists. What I'm telling you is a synopsis of history. I will give you examples. These are not just statements. They're based upon science and history and geography and a study of the Quran. Does not like the extremists. What Allah does not like, do you think you can be successful if Allah does not like it? Do you think you can be successful? No. Do you think you can be successful if Allah does not like it? No way. Do what Allah likes. Being moderate. Why am I saying it? You see, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided us, knowledge rests upon many different pillars. There are different branches of knowledge. But I'll be very brief. Allah showed us in the ayah that I quoted for you, there is the natural science, as we call science. There are the historical or the social sciences, and there are the sciences of the soul. It's like a tripod. Try it. If you want to be a scientist at home, build something using 3 legs and put something on top. You'll find that it's always stable. Even if you have a crooked ground, you can build something with 3 legs, it is stable. Then if you remove one of the legs, it becomes less stable. You remove 2 of the legs, you stand on 1 leg, unless you're a penguin, you'll fall. This is what happened to Muslims. They became extremists. They forgot science. They forgot history. They forgot sociology. And they said, all I'm going to do is to follow a set of rules. Do's and the don'ts. Yes, you must follow the rules. But it's only a little part of what Allah gives us guidance for. Are you still with me? Yes? Are you still with me? Or should I tone down more? Yes or no? Yes? Yes? No? Who says no? I'm still with you? You're still with me. Do not be extremist in anything. See, even in such things as eating food, moderation, eat good food. Not little, not great deal. Even in relationships, maintain a semblance of moderation. Even in a family, maintain a semblance of moderation. Certainly in religion, in faith, maintain a semblance of moderation. Stay away from people who are extremists, because Allah does not love the extremists. What happened to Muslims in the last 300 years was that we went off the tank. Not so much about how did it happen. I'll give you a year if you want to note it down and study later as you grow up. 1683. In the year 1683, certain things happened in world history. You know what happened in 1683? 3 things happened. I'll give you those 3. Number 1, have you heard the name Newton? Newton's laws of motion? All of you? Yes? No? All of you? Newton published his works in 1683. Yes? Newton. Did he? Just say yes. That's number 1. The second thing that happened, the same year, believe it or not, within a matter of a few months, in India, Aurangzeb changed the direction of Islamic history from a basis on the Tasawwuf or Sufism to do's and don'ts by publishing Futuhat-e-Alamgiri, namely the fatwas of Alamgir. He changed the direction of Islamic civilization in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan. Changed the direction. And the third thing that happened was that the Turkish army, which was expanding and going into Europe, suffered a defeat. Second siege of Vienna, 1684. Retreated. And after that, it was never able to go back into Europe. 3 things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us 3 signs. And ever since then, Muslims have been just trying to catch the regression. Are you with me? Now, let's ask ourselves, what else happened? Let's talk about education. It's a very broad field. I'll give you in pieces. All of you are in high school. You study certain subjects. What subjects do you study? Name one subject. Physics, chemistry, biology, math. Yes. What do you study in school? Any subject? Okay. English. Good. What I'm going to give you is a brief history of what happened to us in the Department of Education. See, the Prophet ﷺ was living Qur'an. In other words, he was what we say personification. When someone asked Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu anha, what was the Prophet like? She replied, he was an embodiment of the Qur'an. In other words, he showed through his conduct what the Qur'an was all about. I asked a similar question of a Jewish rabbi, a top Jewish rabbi, when I was in Jerusalem. What was Moses like? And he said Moses was the personification of the Torah. The Torah. Each prophet was a personification of the book that he brought. Then, after the Prophet ﷺ, the people who came after him, the Sahaba, tried to follow the example of the Prophet. Gradually, people got away from it. People disagreed. Why did they disagree? So what happened? Again, I'll give you the top level. So you see, the first thing that happened was, as the Muslim empire expanded, they went into Spain, they went into India, they were on the borders of China, they went into North Africa, right? They went all the way into France, on the outskirts of Paris, before they were compelled to withdraw. As they expanded, other people from India, Persia, Africa, Turkey, Central Asia, they came into Islam. And they started to ask questions. Unlike our generation, I want all of you, good young people, to become good asking people. You ask, you will get it. You don't ask, you don't get it. Study the Quran. Please remember that. You don't do anything else out of this. You must, each of you, study the Quran, so that nobody can draw wool on your face. You say, well, it's in the Quran. You can say, no, it's not shown. What does the Quran say? And you study it. It will grow with you until you're my age, almost 80 years old. Then you'll understand some more of it. Remember, to study the Quran, not just read it. Oh, I read the Quran. No. Read it so you understand it. So I'm going to provide for you, each one of you, a copy of my translation. There are other translations, good translations. Then go into Arabic. The Quran is Arabic. It's only a translation. But at least you start with the translation, work back, and master the Quran. You must study the Quran. So these Sahaba implemented the example of the Prophet. But gradually people, as they came from the outside, they brought their own way of looking at things, and they started to ask questions. One of them was the Greeks. Philosophy, you'll hear doctor of philosophy. You see, these days people get PhD, right? It means doctor of philosophy. But philosophy is not science, so this becomes a little bit more complex. I'll just give you an idea. See, philosophy is a discussion of how things happen top down. In other words, if the sky is blue and there is a reflection in water, why is the water, the ocean water, why is the water blue? It's a top down. It's a way of looking at things. Science, it bottoms up. In science, what you do is you start with the ground. You start with the flower, you start with an atom, you start with a bird, you start with whatever it is, grounds up. Make observations. Based upon the observations, you write a formula, and you check the formula. That's what Newton did. He saw an apple fall down, and he said, well, F equals ma. Force equals mass times acceleration. Einstein was a mathematician. He came up with mathematical derivations, and we are still trying to verify. Science depends upon collection of knowledge, verification, writing formulas, verifying them. All of them depend upon assumptions. Write down. Why is it that we don't want to believe everything the scientists say? Why is it that we don't want to believe everything that philosophers say? Why is it that we don't want to believe any hafiz or any man says? No. Because that man is a human. Doesn't matter whether he's a great khatib or an ordinary khatib. He may be a scholar, you learn from him, but you don't give him 100% certainty. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is certain. Only what the Qur'an says is certain. Everything else, we learn from it. It's a sign. Are you with me? Study the Quran. Believe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't trust people completely. Don't trust science. I'll give you some examples. The theory of evolution. Oh my goodness. I can talk about that for days and days and days. Nobody has proven that if you take a horse from the city of, what's the name of the city? Pleasanton, right? You take a horse from Pleasanton. You send the horse to Alaska. Send the horse to Alaska in an airplane for 200 years. So is the horse going to become a donkey? No. Basically, that's the premise, that there is so-called spontaneous mutation. I haven't seen any evidence to that effect. That human beings came out of monkeys. I haven't seen any evidence to it. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but that is not science. It is a theory. It's a good theory. It's a theory. There is no proof yet. Big Bang. That sounds good, right? I think it was a small bang. You know why? Because before there was a Big Bang, there was only an atom. From the atom came the huge energy. So it was a small bang and an atom. We call it the Big Bang. What was the Big Bang? What was there before the Big Bang? They don't answer. If you ask a physicist, what was there before the Big Bang, say, you're an idiot. Because they don't have an answer. Science gives you answers, relative answers. Science is good. Science is beautiful. Study it. Apply it. But know that science does not give you the absolute truth. It gives you the relative truth. So, what happened to the Muslims was they studied philosophy, they translated books from India and Greece and other places, and they tried to apply philosophy to the Qur'an. You see, no one knows anything about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala except His names and His attributes. We don't know Allah. Nobody can know. You know His names. You know His attributes. You know what He does. We pray to Him. But you don't know Him. No, nobody knows. Not even the Prophet. No one knows Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So these people, the philosophers, said, you know, what we're going to do is to apply philosophy to the interface between Allah and His Word. The interface between Allah and the Qur'an. They said, was the Qur'an created in time or uncreated in time? Question itself nowadays is a little bit crazy. And they did not know enough about time. It's all in the Qur'an, but they did not understand it. So they said it was created. And they fell flat on their face. Things started to get muddying up because they did not understand the limits of what they were studying. So study science, study chemistry, biology, mathematics, but know that it is relative truth. It gives you the truth subject to the assumptions that you make in that discipline. So once you get a PhD one day, inshallah, many of you become doctors, engineers, PhDs, professors, you should learn the limits of that knowledge. I'm a scientist. I built much of the Hubble Space Telescope. I worked on moon landing project. I studied what the limits of science were. So science has limits, the assumptions. They forgot the assumptions. Then came the period of the Crusades and the Mongol invasions. During the Crusades, all of Europe invaded Spain and the Middle East. Spain was lost, and the Middle East suffered because of the invasions. A lot of people got hurt. And at the same time, about the same time, the Mongols from Central Asia attacked and destroyed half of the Islamic world. Half of the Islamic world. Today, for instance, you start with Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iran, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Syria, Iraq, Eastern Turkey, Palestine all the way to Jerusalem. all these areas were completely destroyed by the Mongol invaders. The cities were destroyed. The scholars disappeared. Libraries were burned. Civilization disappeared. Then came the age of the Sufis, those who were looking for the truth inside themselves. And that was a good period. This was the period that gave us the Taj Mahal and the mosque in Istanbul, the Blue Mosque in Istanbul, and the Mosque of Isfahan. And this is the period that produced Maulana Rumi. You'll study them. These are great people. Young people, study them. All the names I'm giving you, study them. Make them your own. They are yours. You're not, as they say, walking in the desert. No, you are inheritors of a very rich civilization. You are rich. You're beautiful. You're good. You must have that confidence when people challenge you and they say, you whatever. Now, you are beautiful because you're beautiful. Secondly, you're inheritors of a great civilization. But if you don't know, how can you talk about it? At least know the names. So, Sufi civilization. And then came 1683, that civilization was taken out, and it was a question of follow the rules, do's and the don'ts. Religion is not just following the rules. It is just the beginning of it. Are you still with me? Religion is search for the truth, which means search for God through what? Nature, history, and the science and the soul. Always within the framework of following his commandments. That's what the Prophet said. That's what happened. You see, it happened gradually. Now, you still have some questions, I'm sure. Some of you want to know specifics about, prayer calculation of prayer times and so on. Those are little questions, calculation of prayer times. Those are little questions I ask you. And I'm not going to talk much. I'm going to ask you to ask questions. I ask you to study the Qur'an. If you don't study, there is nothing anybody can do for you. One day, you will walk away. So many people, 27% of Muslims leave Islam. Did you know that? 27%. Why? They did not study the Quran. They hear about the Quran. Very often young people come to me and say, I want to study the Quran. Which book should I read? And I said, read the book. The book is there. It's not which book that I want to read. Study the Quran. A to Z. Then when you study the history of the Prophet, ask how he did it. It's the process. When he had a difficult situation, how he did it. It's called the approach. It's called the seerah. Not the solution, but the seerah. For instance, when the Meccans attacked Medina, and the Madinites were a minority, he listened to the input from Salman Farsi. He said, dig a trench. It was unknown in Arabia. So all of them got out with shovels, pickaxes, and they were digging, including the Prophet from morning till evening, so until they dug a trench that was about, I forget now the exact dimensions, roughly 20 feet by 30 feet or something. It was a substantial trench. You listen. What is the lesson in here? It is that when you have a new situation, you apply your thinking, you consult. You can't do exactly what the Prophet did. Nobody can. Why? There is a saying, you see? When there is a giant, people talk about walking in the footsteps of the Prophet. The footsteps of the Prophet were so large that not even heaven and earth can walk on them. Not even the angels can walk on them. What you should do when you see a great man is get on his shoulders. And then you'll see far. I'll give you an example. You see, when the Prophet ﷺ went back to Makkah, he went to the Kaaba with Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu. and he asked Ali radiallahu anhu to get on his shoulders so that he can pull down the idols. And Ali radiallahu anhu said, Ya Rasulullah, how can that be? How can I get on your shoulders? It's out of respect. You get on my shoulders. As Ali radiallahu anhu says to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you get on my shoulders. You know what the Prophet told him? Not even the heaven and earth can carry my weight. You cannot carry my weight. See, there are multiple levels. Remember these sayings, and you will understand them as you grow up. No one can carry the weight of the Prophet. So, finally, Hazrat Ali radiallahu anhu, he got on the shoulders of the Prophet, and they pulled down some of those man-made objects. So when you see a giant, don't say, I'm going to walk in his footsteps. Nobody can. Get on his shoulders. Then you will see far. Take advantage of what he did. Knowing full well that this giant, I'm not talking about prophets in here, even giants make mistakes. What Newton did is applicable in certain circumstances. You'll hear the name of Al-Ghazali. Great thinker. Changed the direction of Islamic history. But his position in philosophy is open to question. No, not acceptable. So a giant is a giant for his era. But don't think he is the prophet. No, he's a giant. He's a great man. We respect him, we honor him, we'll follow him. But always know that it is his opinion, that he showed us the way. But he also can and did make mistakes. And this is true of many of the writings in the early ages. For instance, you have the early tafsirs of the Qur'an. Ibn Kathir, for instance. People refer to it. Great man. I mean, such a giant, great man. But there are errors in his tafsir. For instance, what is the error? In referring to the explanation of thunder, Ibn Kathir says, these are jinns screaming. And I was talking to a scientist about 10 years ago. He said, well, I read it, and therefore after that I stopped reading it. I said, no, don't stop reading it. That's one area. Reading is a great man. So, remember these things. In summary, instead of my talking all the time, I've given you the following. Number one, study the Qur'an. Please remember, I beg of you, study the Qur'an. Each of you must become a scholar of the Qur'an so that when people talk to you, you can talk back to them with knowledge. See, if you study physics or chemistry or biology, if you haven't read the book, and the teacher is talking to you about physics or chemistry or biology, or your friend is talking to you, can you talk back? Can you discuss it with them? And yet, so many Muslims want to talk about the Qur'an, want to talk about Islam. They have never read the Qur'an. They have read about the Qur'an, what somebody else said the Qur'an. Maybe their friend, maybe their dad, a mom, or uncle. But you must study the Qur'an. That's number one. Number two, know that the Qur'an guides us in the direction of the truth. Allah is the truth. His name is truth. Allahu Akbar. The early Muslims searched for him, and Allah showed them the way. Later Muslims stopped asking. If you don't ask, remember the other thing I'm teaching you. If you don't ask in your life, somebody else will ask for you, and you will not be happy. It will become his story, history, not your story. Write your own story. Write it. Why do you want somebody else to write? What is happening in today's world? Other people are defining Muslims, telling us who we are. Other people are telling us, you are this, you are that. No. Write your own history. Ask. Learn to ask. Allah wants us to ask. And then understand how we got in here. What happened? What happened to the educational process? What happened to the scientific process, the historical process? Gradually, we got away from the basics of Islam, and we ended up where we are, so that today When you look at the list of the top 1,000 institutions in the world, not even one is from Islam. Not even one. With so much wealth, billions of them. Not even one university worth the salt. There have been 900 Nobel laureates. 900 of them. Only 9 of them have been Muslim. And out of the 9, 6 of them got the prize for peace. Bringing peace. How much peace there is in the Islamic world, you know. Only 3 Nobel laureates in science. We forgot the Qur'an. My good young people. With that, I'm going to stop because if I talk too much, it's not good. So I'm going to ask you to ask questions so that we better understand ourselves. Okay, Assalamu alaikum. There is a 4-minute movie that we got from the Facebook about water. Now people ask, is it being recorded now? Yeah. People ask, why say Bismillahirrahmanirrahim? Why say anything good? This movie will show you what happens to water when you say something good, and what happens to it when you say something bad. Now, your parents tell you don't use these words, or your teachers, words don't just hurt. Words transform us. We are 60% water. Good words transform us in good ways. Bad words similarly transform, changes in a bad way. So, is everybody here? I'm still waiting for a couple of people. Okay. Let's go ahead and show the 4-minute movie, and you'll enjoy it. Please go ahead.
Japanese scientist Masaru Emoto discovers the secrets of Zamzam water. Science has now revealed new secrets about Zamzam water and the way water is influenced by the verses of the Qur'an. It has now been scientifically proven that water is affected by what is recited over it. Japanese scientist Masaru Emoto first began experimenting on water after he had read that each snowflake falling from the sky is unique. He wanted to disprove this theory, as his scientific instincts told him that this could not be true. The geometric shape of the snowflake is determined by its chemical composition. The composition of water is well known: 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. So, how can snowflakes that fall from the sky be different from one another? He said, "I was determined to prove that this theory was false, so he built a laboratory consisting of a deep freezer with a regulator because no liquid subjected to a sudden freezing can assume a geometric shape. The freezing must be slow, so the atoms have the chance to crystallize into the shape decreed by God." He set up a deep freezer with a regulator, a cold room at the temperature of -7 degrees Celsius, and several microscopes equipped with the cameras so he could photograph the snowflake before it melted. He said, "I took samples from 2 faucets in the laboratory. I froze them and each sample gave me a different snowflake. The samples came from 2 different wells, 2 different rivers, from 2 different lakes." A Muslim later introduced Dr. Emoto to Zamzam water so he could experiment on it. Emoto took a sample of Zamzam water and said, "I couldn't crystallize it, even by diluting the Zamzam water with distilled water." He finally managed to crystallize the Zamzam water after diluting it by 1,000, 1 drop of Zamzam mixed with 1,000 drops of distilled water. And he got a uniquely shaped crystal. 2 crystals were formed, one on top of the other. Mr. Emoto's colleagues said that the 2 crystals could be due to the fact that Zamzam water is composed of 2 words, Zam and Zam. Allah knows best. Masaru Emoto said, "My Muslim colleague offered to play Quranic verses over the water. He bought a tape recorder and played some Quranic verses, and we got the most perfectly shaped crystals, subhanallah. These are actual images of the crystals that were formed after the verses of the Qur'an were played." Dr. Emoto was also told that Muslims recite Bismillah, which means in the name of God, before drinking water. This has been practiced by Muslims since the time of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. The word Bismillah was found to improve the quality and the structure of even regular water. Alhamdulillah. Dr. Emoto completed these experiments, which lasted 15 years. He published a 5-volume book called Messages from Water. He wrote, "I have proven that water is capable of thinking, fathoming, feeling, and expressing itself." The following was written by Dr. Masaru Emoto. "The quality and purity of Zamzam water will not be found anywhere else on this earth." He did a lot of research on Zamzam water and found that if 1 drop of Zamzam water is mixed in 1,000 drops of regular water will increase in quality similar to Zamzam water. The minerals in 1 drop of Zamzam water were far superior to any other water he had tested. He also found that the quality of Zamzam water could not be changed. Even after he recycled the Zamzam water, there was no change, it was still pure. For those who are unsure of what Zamzam is, we will explain briefly. The Zamzam well was revealed to Hajar, the second wife of Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him. By the instruction of God, Ibrahim alayhi salam left his wife and son at a spot in the desert and walked away. She was desperately seeking water for her infant son, but she could not find any way, as Mecca is located in a hot, dry valley with few sources of water. Hajar ran 7 times back and forth in the scorching heat between the 2 hills of Safa and Marwa, looking for water, getting thirstier by the second. Allah sent the angel Jibril alayhi salam, who struck the ground with his wing and the Zamzam water rose from the ground. A similar story about a well is also mentioned in the Bible. Ibrahim alayhi salam rebuilt the house of God, the Kaaba, near the site of Zamzam well, a building which had been originally constructed by Prophet Adam, peace be upon him. Today, Muslims from around the globe all face the Kaaba in prayer 5 times a day. The Zamzam well is located approximately 20 meters or 66 feet east of the Kaaba.
What it shows is that good words do have an influence on water. And 60% of our bodies are built up of water. This, you cannot say, is science. What you can say is that the premise or the statement that words do not have an influence on water or the body is not correct. Are you with me? In other words, not everybody can repeat this experiment. It shows that it does have an influence under restricted circumstances. So do not be angry. When you're angry, try to control. When you're angry, you do things that you will repent later and cause a lot of damage to yourself and to others. Anger is like fire, burns. Reasonable? What else did you get out of this? Anything? In terms of science or in terms of the impact on water and Zamzam? Anyone? Nothing?
I just realized something. In my last culture, sometimes people they go like they go down in water and they have some of the sites wrong over them. And I didn't know why, but I think that's really likely.
Repeat the question for the. Repeat the question, please, because
The answer was that this young brother, he said he's an Afghan, and he has seen people in Afghanistan drink a lot of Zamzam water, and then at the same time, people recite the Qur'an, and he did not understand it until he saw this little movie, so that we do understand that good words do have an influence on the body. Okay, question and answer time. The first question was asked of me earlier, so I'll get started, as to why is there so many young people get attracted to the secular culture? Is that a legitimate question? You know what secular culture is in all of their American culture? Song, dance, all the things that go on. Is that a legitimate question? Legitimate meaning is a reasonable question? It is, because as I said, 27% of Muslims in a generation walk over from Islam to secular beliefs. Similarly, 29% of Jewish children walk away from their faith to secular culture. 25% of Hindu children walk away from their faith to secular culture. Now, the question is, why is that so? The reasons are complex. It's not one reason. But one of the reasons is that parents, religious leaders, as well as children themselves, do not know the Qur'an. I repeat, one of the reasons is that our religious leaders have failed to communicate the dynamism of Islam, the inclusiveness of Islam, how Islam teaches us the approach to science, how the Qur'an teaches us the approach to history and sociology, how the Qur'an teaches us the approach to understanding what is within ourselves, the soul. They have failed to do that. Instead, they have focused on do this, don't do that. I've heard this from young people. I go home, I'm told don't do this. I go to school, I'm told don't do this. What can I do? The Qur'an is not a compendium of do's and don'ts. The Qur'an is a book of guidance, a book of signs through which we can aspire to go back to the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is happiness, that is peace. That's being beautiful. That's reason number one. Reason number two within the families themselves, we as parents have failed to communicate the dynamism of Islam because we haven't studied the Quran. We ourselves have become prisoners of certain do's and don'ts, certain methods, and do this. If you don't do this, you're going to go to hell. Allah did not create humankind. Allah is loving, kind, Rahman, 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 Rahman. Allah says, I want to forgive you. I love you, that's the reason I created you. I have given this example in some khutbahs, namely, if you have a mother, and for whatever reason, she has a child who is not good looking. Everybody in the world says, baby, this baby, poor baby, not good looking. Does it decrease the love of the mother for the baby? Does it? Now, if that is so only for a mother, think of Allah. He is all merciful, Rahman and Rahim. Did He create us to send us to hell? He loves us. He wants us to be successful. He wants us to find Him, to His presence. Don't emphasize hell. Emphasize heaven. Emphasize what is good about human beings. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. We are better than angels. We're better than jinns. Shaitan cannot come to you unless you allow him to come to you. That's what the Quran says. Only those who allow Shaitan to come to them are susceptible to his deception. If you say no to him, also billahi minash shaitanir rajim, you go towards Allah. That's the second reason. Third reason, young people. You know, it's fun to play games, right? It's fun to get on that, whatever, I don't know much about games, so I can't talk about games with any kind of knowledge. But I see this game, Nintendo games, whatever kinds of games. Yes, another. What was that? Yes. See, I don't know the games, so forgive me. Fun to play games. And you see all this glitter out there. But take this from me. The glitter is meaningless. Because modern man, those who come into Islam, now I talked about people who go out of Islam. Those who come into Islam is because they're searching for spirituality, and Islam offers them that spirituality, that peace of mind to be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Millions of people come into Islam in spite of all the propaganda against Islam. Why? Because it shows them the way, the path, the sign to the presence of Allah. And the presence of Allah is peace. So the young people themselves, instead of studying the Qur'an, it does not take much, folks. All of you will get a copy before you go of a translation. The Qur'an is in Arabic. It's only a translation. And I hope you will promise me that you will study it. Study some ayahs having to do with science, biology, physics, mathematics, history, and learn from it. Then you will see that whereas the Qur'an puts your feet securely on the ground and points you in the direction of heaven, the secular culture leaves you dangling between heaven and earth, so that you will neither belong to the earth nor the heaven. You will find that. It has no anchor. It's a deception. That was one question. Now let's go on to the second. Any follow-on question? Anything? Yes, let's go ahead and do that. Remember, I said each one of you must ask one question. Reason of... Yes. Say yes. Come on. Must ask. My lungs are 78 years old. I need some break. I ask questions, I can listen to you and learn. Please go ahead.
You keep saying study the Quran, but how should one go about studying the Quran? Because it's not like a book that you read from cover to cover. Is there authentic tafsir?
Very simple. Study it. Pick it up. If you know Arabic, start with the Arabic. Then look at the various different commentaries that people have. If you don't know Arabic, don't let that stop you. Start with a good translation. Look up those ayahs that are of interest to you. If you're interested in science, look up the ayahs about science. See how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides you in that direction. Then look at the tafsirs. Then gradually, as you learn Arabic, go to the original Arabic. And you'll see that the Arabic is so much more powerful than any translation. So it's like anything else. How do you study physics? Read the book, get started. How do you learn to play soccer? Kick the ball, slowly. And surely one day you'll become a good soccer player, or a tennis player, or whatever. Just like anything else. The thing not to say is, oh, is there something? No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the book for everybody. For you, and me, and our forefathers, and our children, grandchildren. It's for everybody. Read it. Don't let anything stop. Very good question. How about studying the hadith? Hadith is also important. I've been studying the Qur'an. I've been emphasizing the study of the Qur'an because it is the source. Start with the Qur'an, then go to hadith. And when I speak of the hadith, my advice to you young people is to think about the seerah, the path, the example of the Prophet. What he said sets an example within a certain context of the times. So if we don't know the context, do we understand him? Maybe, maybe not. So it's important to understand the context and understand his methodology. It was always rational and spiritual. All of those things put together. I'll give you an example. People say when you drive, you should look in the rear view mirror. But when you look at the rear view mirror, you must always be conscious of what is coming ahead of you, a truck. You're always looking at the rear view mirror, you're going to go headlong into the truck that is coming at you. So when we study the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, we must learn to apply to what is ahead of us, our times, what is here. Learn from it and apply it. Learn from it and apply it. However, I will still submit. Start with the Quran first, then go to the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. Yes?
So I've heard that a lot of the people who do tend to leave Islam, especially those who are in the younger age group, it usually comes from them like self-educating through the Quran because they'll bring up verses that are either contradictory or don't make sense or they seem harsh. And I feel like if you're not studying under a person and you're going in as an adolescent just trying to comprehend what is already there, I feel like you're more susceptible to shaitan twisting these things. Because when I was younger and I was trying to read the translation of the Quran myself, I would come across verses where I would think, well, that doesn't seem fair, or that doesn't make sense, just because of my own lack of knowledge and wisdom, of course. So I feel like it's important for our youth to kind of have also a guidance there to help them along with studying the Quran, because if you take it upon yourself, you're it's kind of treading a very rocky road because you don't know which approach you might take. So I don't know, what do you think?
Very, very good comment. The sister was recommending and saying, correctly so, you must have a sheikh. You must have a scholar under whom you study. Beautiful thought. That is always true. If you have a sheikh, study under him. right thing to do. Unfortunately, what has happened in this day and age is that there aren't sheikhs available. There aren't people available, and this area is gifted. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has been good to us in this area. But you go on the internet, you don't have the sheikhs, but you have the Qur'an and good translations. So what I'm recommending is, yes, you're absolutely right. If you have a sheikh, that's the right thing to do. If you don't have a sheikh, don't let it stop. Study the Qur'an. The Qur'an is, in my opinion, if you approach it with an open heart, if you approach it with taqwa in your heart, it opens your heart slowly but surely. No one can understand the Qur'an, those who have attempted the translation. And I will speak from my personal experience. There are words in the Qur'an on which I have spent 3 months without doing justice to their meaning, and I have cried over it. Not possible. Nobody can translate the Qur'an. But it will grow on your heart. So what I'm saying is, yes, absolutely, if you have a sheikh, study it. That's the right way to do it. If you don't have a sheikh, don't let it stop. Have a copy, study, go to the sheikh. You'll find, inshallah, some sheikh, some place will help you. Reasonable. Oh, the question is, someone told me the other day that music is haram. Is it really true?
Yes.
That's the question.
Yes.
Okay. Now you see, you have to understand, now you're talking to a scientist. What is music? For a scientist, the music is what we call wave motion, harmonics. And I'll give you some good esoteric answer. For instance, you have you hear the radio, right? You watch television, you play games, you watch the satellites up there, at least you see pictures of them. You see how the airplanes are guided. All of them are guided by wavelengths, one kind or the other. There's gravity that pulls us down, that's also wave. Electromagnetic radiation that enables radio, television, all kinds of communication, satellites, rockets. Then you have weak atomic forces that holds the core of the atom together, and strong atomic forces. They're all waves. Music is waves. Instead of calling music, let's call it waves. In Surah Al-Baqarah, there is a word called Shabahat Allah. The wavelengths from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. People did not understand it in the old days, so in their commentaries they said, this refers to certain kinds of dyes, certain colors that people used to mix together, and that's what it refers to. Now we understand a little better. It's referring to the wavelengths from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are wavelengths within the heart, electromagnetic waves. There are wavelengths in the brain. Ask a doctor. They'll tell you. So, people who say music is haram, what they're saying is that the type of wavelengths that take you towards shaitan are not welcome. But the wavelengths that take you towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they're good wavelengths. For instance, you hear the name of Imam al-Ghazali. People don't talk about it. He wrote an entire volume on music and the healing effects of music. In the classical ages as well as the Turkish ages, music was used to heal those who were sick. I have visited personally an institution in Anatolia in Turkey where they used to use music to heal. Music was used by Maulana Rumi. So you see, music itself is is a misleading word. Wavelengths that take you towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are good wavelengths. Wavelengths that take you away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala are bad wavelengths. It's a very complex subject. For instance, earthquakes are waves. Different kinds of waves. There are different kinds of waves within earthquakes. So if you don't study wavelengths, a wave theory, can you understand earthquakes? No. Can you understand electromagnetic radiation? No. Can you understand rockets? No. Can you understand satellites? No. Can you understand inertial guidance? No. You want to go to Mars, somebody asked me, can you go to Mars? No. Can you understand sound, what I'm saying in here? No. It's all the waves. All comes under wave theory. It's a powerful theory. Study waves. Comes under harmonics, the study of harmonics. Fundamental mathematical ability. If you don't study that, you will be ignored. Study and use those wavelengths that take you towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Stay away from those wavelengths that take you away. Reasonable? So don't. People say music is haram, music is haram. Understand what music is. I made it a little complex, right? But I gave you a good answer. Correct answer. Yes, ma'am. Does anywhere in the Quran mention of extraterrestrial life? Not specifically. However, the opening surah that we all recite all the time in prayer, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. What does Alam mean? Alam, in the old days, we used to translate as world, different worlds. But Alam is more than that. I have translated to mean universe, universes. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the cosmos which we do not even understand. How many universes are there? We do not know. In our own universe, how many galaxies are there? We think there are 2 billion. We do not know. In our own galaxy, how many stars are there? We think 2 billion. We do not know. And our own star, mid-sized star, not a very big star, out there in the niche, and around it, this Earth, little speck of dust, and there are 7-8 billion of us. So to ask the question, is there extraterrestrial life outside of the Earth, of the system, is a very legitimate question. I would propose, yes, there probably is, except that we don't know about it. I say yes because when you read descriptions of the ascension of the Prophet Muhammad during Miraj, there is mention in here when he goes to the Sidratul Muntaha. There is a description of the so-called bird. A bird is not a bird. A bird is a reference to something that is, like for instance, a reference to the soul also as a bird, or the ruh as a bird. That's a different issue. A bird that every moment comes down and swallows a grain, goes up there, and the Prophet ﷺ asked Jibreel, what is that? The answer was from Jibreel that every moment the universe is consumed and the universe is created. Every moment. So, I would propose that there is, except that we don't know it. In the Qur'an, is there specific mention of extraterrestrial creatures? No. There is mention of the angels and the jinns and human beings. But there is mention of Alameen. So that is a fact. This is an opinion. So we must always be conscious of what is fact and what is opinion. That's my interpretation. Reasonable. Sir, you must have a question. You were asking good questions, sir. Ask a question.
So, my question was, how would we, or do you have some references that we can look at we can then talk about and we can learn about what the Muslims contributed to the West. That way when people, because we hear a lot about, oh, what this scientist did and that scientist did, but we don't hear about, as you mentioned, there's only 9 Nobel laureates that are Muslim. But what about when we go into the history, when we go into the past, what are some things that, and some people that we can learn about, we can take inspiration from them, we can aspire to do them.
Excellent question. Are there references, books, which tell us something about the contributions of early Muslim scholars and scientists? Yes. I offered, this was not passed on to the people. I have a website. There are other references too. But this one is free. If you have access to the internet, go on to historyofislam.com. 2 million people around the world have read it. And within that, go to the section on science and Islam. And in there, you'll find several articles about Muslim scientists, brief articles, Muslim scientists. And use that as a starting point. I have mentioned about 15 great Muslim scientists in the past era and their contributions. You can start with that as a starting point. No cost, it's available to you free. Now, having said that, how many of you know Imam Abu Hanifa? Do you all know Imam Abu Hanifa? All of you, yes? Who does not know the name of Imam Abu Hanifa? Raise your hand. You don't know the name. No, 2. See, Imam Abu Hanifa is the mujtahid or the imam whose fiqh we follow, most parts of the world. One of the 4 great imams. Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, Imam Shafi, and Imam Hanbal. And of course Imam Jafar as-Sadiq, or our Shia brothers. Did you know that Imam Abu Hanifa, in addition to being a great scholar, Qur'an, Sunnah, and Prophet, was a scientist, a great city planner? Did you know that he was the one who laid out the city of Baghdad when it was founded in the year 760? Did you know that he was the first one who came up with the idea of standardization? You buy Apple computers, right? One Apple computer is the same as the other one, standardized. Did you know that he was the one who first came up with it? You write algebra. Did you know the Muslims came up with algebra? You study chemistry. Did you know the Muslims came up with chemistry? You write computer programs. Did you know that Al-Khwarizmi was the one who came up with the idea of writing algorithms? You study astronomy. Did you know the Muslims were the first ones to build observatories? The Greeks used to speculate the Muslims built observatories to observe. So they're all there. And please start with that. I'm giving it to you not to propagate anything, just that the website is mentioned. You're welcome to look at it and then go on, study it. It's all available. There is a wealth of information. You want to study the Taj Mahal? Study about who built it. Ustad Ahmed of Lahore. Some of you are from Pakistan, or your parents were from Pakistan. At that time, Afghanistan was also a part of the Mongol Empire. Read about Muhammad Sinan of Turkey, who built so many great monuments in Turkey. You'll see. Did you know that the Muslims were the first ones to use so-called composite materials that are used in space these days? Babur of Delhi used it. Did you know that the Muslims were the ones who used a cannon, a gun, which had the ability to track targets hundreds of yards away in the 16th and 17th century? Most importantly, did you know that the Muslims invented the rockets? Did you know that the rockets invented by Muslims in the 18th century in the war of 1799 by Tipu Sultan were captured by the British improved upon, brought over to America in the war on America, in the War of 1812, and used in that war. And it was these cannons, these rockets that were shooting at the fort in Baltimore. And the right.
Star-Spangled Banner.
Star-Spangled Banner. Did you know the Star-Spangled Banner was inspired by the fireworks that were caused by the rockets invented by a Muslim Sultan? Did you know that? Read it. I've given you references. These are facts. These are not money. I'm not making this up. I'm a scientist. I examine. Please. Yes. Yeah. Examples of science from the Quran. So many examples. The Quran, for instance, talks about water, the importance of water. How water, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings down water from the heavens, falls in the earth, and from an earth that is dead, it brings forth the vegetation, and the vegetation grows into corn, into grain, and fruit, and flowers, and this grain, and fruit, and the flowers sustain us for life, and we consume. The Quran talks about how upon conception, we as human beings, all of us, spent 9 months in our mother's wombs. The Quran talks in great detail from the moment of conception, correctly, how we grow within the wombs of our mothers. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of our mothers and send them to Jannah. And then we are born. The Quran talks about the ayahs in history, giving example after example. In the creation of the heavens and the earth, in the alteration of the day and night. Talks about it. Did you know that the Mayans, thinking about the alteration of the day and night, they came up with the concept of zero? The Quran talks about it. Inna fi khalqi samawati wal ardi wa ikhtilafi al-layli wan nahar wa ikhtilafi al-layli wan nahar. The contrast between day and night, the contrast between day and night leads you to the concept of zero. Not one. You will find there's a book written by Maurice Bucaille. He's a Frenchman, doctor, who looked at the Quran, trying to find if there was anything in the Quran that was contradictory to what we know about science and the nature of things today. No, he wrote a whole book. It's a book that is available. Maurice Bucaille. Please look it up. Yes. How would I explain the soul using science? I can't. Because the soul is not accessible to science. Great scholars have attempted to do it. There was a great scholar named Ibn Rushd. He was probably the greatest philosopher after Aristotle. He lived in the 14th century, 13th, 14th century. He attempted to do it. And ultimately his conclusion was, I believe in the immortality of the soul, but I cannot prove it. From modern examples, Schrödinger was a Nobel laureate. He asked himself the question, where is the soul? Where is the interface between the soul and the world? He said, can't find it. Do not know. So the correct answer that I can give you is no. Science is like an arrow. It points in a direction, but the closer you get, the farther you are from the soul. Until you arrive at a point, you say, all of this world is nothing but either a reflection or a deception. The only thing that exists is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, briefly, science will not give us the answer about the soul. They have looked at it, no. It belongs in a different domain.
What is the correct approach call referring to a natural phenomena, such as the one by Maurice Bucaille, I'm not on the name. But like these days, a lot of times you see on the news or in Muslim circles where the scientists might say, oh yeah, there's this, certain chemical in pigs and that's like wrong. And then like 10 years later you find out that it's in beef food. So how do you...
Well, that's the lack of understanding that we have. We should not jump to conclusions. Science is a method, a process that enables us to understand Allah's creation so that we can use it for the benefit of humankind, so we get close to Him. Allah says, I have made subject to you everything that is in the heavens and the earth. So use science for the proper purpose, but don't jump on the basis of, see, these do's and don'ts cause a lot of problems because the people who give those opinions, the fatwas, most of them do not understand science, unfortunately. It is important that we train our future scholars so that they know the Qur'an, they know the Sunnah of the Prophet, and they know science and history and the Sunnah. Then you have a scholar. So somebody says there is an element in here, smaller question. Don't be distracted. Keep your horizon on Allah. Keep your horizon on the big things, which is to seek the pleasure of Allah. Why is there so much warfare in Muslim countries? Very complex reasons. There are economic reasons, money. There are political reasons, outsiders and insiders. People coming from the outside that want you to fight so that they take your resources, the money that you have, the oil, and in Afghanistan, all the minerals that you have. There are social reasons. Namely, we ourselves don't know the Qur'an, so we fight. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, hold on to the rope that Allah has given you and don't be divided. But as soon as you walk out, you have the Shias and the Sunnis, and you have the people calling each other Wahhabis, and I don't like the Sufis, endless. But Allah says you have the Quran and the example of the Prophet, hold on to it and do not be divided. So there are multiple reasons, there's not one reason. And it is exploited by outsiders, and we fall prey to it, and we continue to do it. Yes. Who's the greatest Muslim scientist?
No, the greatest scientific mystery.
You said, what's the greatest scientific mystery that scientists can't solve that there's no explanation for?
The truth. What is the truth? Allahu Haq. Allah is the truth. Allah is justice. Allah is raising responsibility. And so on. And once you go beyond the domain of the physical, science stops. Even the physical, I can't talk to you about linear, non-linear, singularity, and all of those kinds of things. I will lose you. So what is the greatest mystery? The greatest mystery is the mystery itself. You can start with the lowest level of mystery, yourself. It's a good question in here. Can science solve the mystery of the soul? No. Knowing yourself is a movement towards knowing the truth. So, the soul is a mystery. The creation of Adam is a mystery. The light of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Nur Muhammad, is a mystery. The names of Allah are all mysterious. We know only something about it. So the whole world is a mystery. What is the greatest mystery? The greatest mystery is the name of Allah. Him. He is the greatest mystery. We'll never know it. On the day of judgment, we have been promised that the mystery will become veiled. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it possible for us. May He judge us by His rahmah. Reasonable? That's the greatest mystery. Yes.
You touched a little bit earlier on something that I wanted to ask. You don't have to answer it, but a lot of times when us young kids are getting into the circles of learning the deen, we often come across terms like Sufi, Wahhabi, Salafi, but what are these different?
They're historical terms. They're not in the Qur'an. They're historical terms. And I've gone into great depth in the Encyclopedia of Islamic History as to how they came about. My advice to the young people is don't be distracted by this term. Don't call people names of Wahhabi and the. If a position is consistent with the Qur'an and the Sunnah of the Prophet, accept it. If it is not consistent with the Qur'an and the Sunnah of the Prophet, don't accept it. That's all. Don't be confident. Those are silly things. Keep people divided. No. There are historical terms. There are reasons for it. And they're causing a lot of damage. Who has not asked a question? Yes.
She asked about the splitting of the moon population. What do scientists that are not Muslim have to say about the splitting of the moon?
Oh, the splitting of the moon.
Yeah, that Muhammad.
Yeah, it's a very good question. You know, I have very good question, a very difficult question. And any answer that you give is likely to get you into controversy. So I'll report to you. I'll take on the position of a reporter rather than giving you my own opinion. Some scholars say, yes, indeed, the moon split and people saw it, and then it was recombined. Some scholars say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam showed the signs of the last days. Namely, just before Yawm al-Qiyamah, the moon will split, moon will disappear, all creation will disappear. Some scholars maintain that. Yet other scholars say, well, that was allegorical. Namely, it's a simile. It has to be understood in a spiritual way. So these are the opinions that I found. I will not give you my opinion because if I say it tomorrow, I'll be in hot water.
The question is also that what do the non-Muslim scientists have to say about this?
They don't accept it. Don't accept it.
Is there any science to back it? Or they don't?
They say
they mention it on moon real, that a lot of the Muslims who hold the opinion that the moon was split by the Prophet, they often cite something called the moon rill. A moon rill.
well, there are different explanations. First of all, it's not the Prophet who causes the moon to split. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet showed him the signs. That's a small correction. No non-Muslims accept it because they point out that physically it's impossible. And so the argument goes on. Again, my suggestion to you is that do not get involved in those kinds of questions. You know, that takes you on. There are so many important issues that mainline questions having to do with our faith and how to bring people together. That if we get bogged down in controversies whether calling people Sufis, Salafis, this, that, and so on, or discussions of what is permissible, what is not permissible, and if you don't do it my way, therefore, etc. Or questions of maintenance. For instance, there was a statement that was made when Louis Armstrong landed on the moon, came back, and some Muslims said that Armstrong heard the azan on the moon. Could not have. There's no earth, there's no air on the moon, and he denied it. So some of these kind of things come from non-Muslim sources. And Muslims get all excited. Oh, did you hear Armstrong heard the azan on the moon? If there's no air, there's no way. Cannot turn this until he himself denied it. So my recommendation is Focus on what is important. Focus on the essentials. And avoid these peripheral things that are distracting. Learn to work together. Learn to hold each other's hand. Learn to support each other. Learn to understand the essence of the Quran, which means to understand the mystery of the soul, the mystery of Adam, as this is the period of life, the mystery of the creation of light of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the mystery that's associated with each of the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Contemplate, think about it, use science and history to get closer and closer to it. You'll never reach it, but you'll go focus.
What does the moon have to do with the gravitational pull of the ocean?
What does the moon have to do with the gravitational pull of the ocean?
But that's easy. So the moon, like any other heavenly body, attracts other bodies. Every body in the universe attracts every other body in the universe. Every atom does it. Every sphere does it. The moon has gravitational attraction. So it attracts everything on Earth towards it. And water, the surface layers of water, are attracted by this gravitational pull. The gravitational pull pulls the top layers of water towards the shore. But then when it's pulled towards the shore, then the other forces tend to take it back. So until the two are in balance, it keeps moving forward, then it moves back. In the meantime, the moon continues to pull you up the other way. So it has to do with the gravity of the moon upon the Earth. Just as the Earth has its gravity in the moon, we captured it, and we did a good job. Still with us. I show it to my grandchildren. Yes.
What is the essence
Essence
of
of?
time?
Oh my goodness. You're asking a $1 million question. In the Quran, there are 16 different descriptions of the Quran. That's why so many Muslims and non-Muslims fell into error because they did not understand. So many scholars fall into error because they don't understand. The one who understood time was our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and asked, tell me when is the day of judgment? He would always say the knowledge of that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I don't know. That was the greatest human being who ever lived. In the Quran, you find descriptions of the passage of time, the relative time, timeless time, time as measured by days, time as measured by moment, time as measured towards the judgment day, time as perceived in the judgment day, and on and on and on, and deceptive time. All of these descriptions are in the Quran. So if you take the copy of the Quran that will be supplied to you, look in the index, look at time, and go back and see those ayahs where there is a description of time. For instance, just to illustrate what I'm talking about, Al-Asr. Asr means passage of time. Then Ad-Dahr. Ad-Dahr is timeless time. Then, for instance, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, matters are sent to him in the day, the measure whereof for you is 1,000 years, relative time, etc. It's all there. Look at the index, go back and study what the Quran has to say about time. Time is a mystery. Nobody understands it. No scientists, not even the prophets understood what time is. That's why the Mutazilites made a mistake, philosophers made. That's why Imam Ghazali made a mistake. That's why so many scientists make a mistake. That's why we all make mistakes, because we misunderstand time. It's a mystery, it's a gift, the greatest gift. What is it? We don't know. No one knows. But the references in the Quran are all there. I cataloged them. There are at least 16 of them. Please do look at them. Last question. maybe last but one.
A lot of times, like a lot of the sisters are talking about how these days people are looking at the Quran and they're like, oh yeah, it's, parallels with time. But one example is that a lot of people suggest that the Quran was referring to a lot of the earth, which is a word that's synonymous with ostrich egg, and then they say that the Quran is saying that the earth is round. But I was wondering if any scientists, Muslim scientists, or non-Muslim scientists who study the Quran in the medieval classical age ever developed any scientific theories from reading the Quran, and how also they view natural phenomena that kind of so that in the Quran. They didn't view the earth as flat, they view it as round.
The fact that the earth is round was not discovered by Westerners. It was discovered by the Muslims when they started to use measured astronomy. Al-Biruni, who is an Afghan, he was one of them. He talks about not only that, they developed calendars, the rotation of the moon, the rotation of the earth, the ecliptic declension of the sun. All of them, the Muslim scholars studied. What did they base it on? On the Qur'an. These are all great scholars. The first thing that we studied was the Qur'an, and then the Sunnah of the Prophet. Then they would go on to study mathematics and logic and astronomy and physics and chemistry of the day, and they would make contributions. All of the great ones. And I mentioned in the, you want to know some of the names? I'll read them in here. Give me a second if you please. You have Jabir ibn Hayyan. I'll give you the article. Al-Khwarizmi, Al-Khindi, Al-Razi, Al-Batani, Al-Farabi, Al-Masudi, Al-Buzjani, Ibn Sina, Ibn al-Haytham, Al-Biruni, Omar Khayyam, Al-Idrisi, Ibn Rushd, Al-Jazari. Al-Jazari, by the way, was the one who invented the science of robotics. These days, artificial intelligence and robotics is a big deal, right? You see these cars, Tesla, right? The car that's automatically here, what car is that? Tesla? Yeah. All of this started with Al-Jazari. I'll give you this article. This is yours. Read it. This from the inside. This is the last question.
We talked a lot about the past of what these statements what to do today. We are thinking, what do we do in order to move forward? We already discussed the question of people asking why, and the question when.
Very good. Excellent. What do we do now to move forward? Now, I'll ask my good young friend Idris in here. Open the last page, if you would. And just the one just before that. That list what we need. Basically, I'll tell you what we need. Number one, we must change our thinking in here. We must look at the Quran for what it is, as a sign from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which points us in the direction of understanding nature and history and our soul. Combine them in our educational process. An alim is not just the one who has studied the Quran and memorized a few whatever. No. The classical alims knew the Quran, knew the Sunnah, but they also knew all of these other disciplines. So the first thing we have to do is acquire knowledge. Second thing we have to do is learn to work with each other. Stop the labeling, calling up names, etc. Work together for what? To establish justice and establish the truth. The third thing that the governments will have to do is establish institutions of learning, wherein scholars can congregate and study what needs to be studied as they did in the old days. World-class institutions. are some initial things. But for you, what you need to do is to start with the study of the Quran. I'm Sheikh, good. If not, don't let it stop. I want you to become at least conversant with the Quran so that when you talk from knowledge, not from hearsay. And study the Sirah, his methodology, how great he was, how beautiful he was, the way he made his choices. Start there. You'll be happy. Study the Quran, you'll be happy. I would like to thank you for your time. I hope this session has been useful in some ways. I hope what I've communicated to you is the importance of knowing the Quran, understanding the Sirah of the Prophet, understanding the importance of science and its limitations, understanding the importance of history and its direction, understanding the importance of knowing the soul to the extent that we can know its attributes, and charting our course based upon knowledge, cooperation, wisdom, and continuous struggle. Inshallah. I thank you once again, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of the young people. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us for the things that we have not done right. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment, when He does judge us, there is no question that there will be judgment. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala judge us by His rahmah, and not by our deeds, because we are human beings and make mistakes. فَحَوْلَ قَوْلُ هَذَا وَاسْتَغْفِرُ اللَّهَ